Alright everyone, Cowboy Trades here. The first FOMC minutes meeting of 2023 is set to release in 6 hours and 43 minutes on 7 PM GMT time or 2 PM Eastern time. Here's everything you need to know. So this FOMC minutes is going to be for the last Fed meeting, which was hawkish, so I do expect hawkish sentiment to bleed into this minutes meeting. If you need a refresher, in the last FOMC meeting it was hawkish and we raised interest rates all the way up to 4.5%. So this FOMC minutes meeting is going to be talking about their decision, and also the Fed is going to be talking about their inflation forecast and how this will affect the policy rates. Basically, at the conclusion of the previous FOMC meeting, the Federal Open Market Committee policymakers, they posted a new projection on how they believe inflation is going to be higher than expected coming into 2023 and how this will affect the interest rate. So basically the Fed is going to shed some light on why it's worried that strong inflation may linger into the US economy. And of course, as we know, if they believe inflation is going to linger, then this is another reason for Powell to keep on raising the interest rates up to a higher basis points. Now, the Fed has previously said before, we want the interest rates to be at least round about a terminal rate of 5%. As it's now at 4.5%, this suggests further tightening. And if they believe inflation is going to be higher than anticipated in 2023, we may still see another 250 basis point increases, maybe another 350 basis point increases, all the way up to a rate of 6%, which basically is on par with what happened in 2007-8. In fact, it's a tiny bit higher, almost coming into contact with what happened in the 2000 financial crisis. So as we know, we've looked at this on the channel before, we've talked about how, expensive interest rates compared to cheap interest rates affect the economy. You can see over here in 2000, the bull market really didn't start, well, 2003, but this was obviously after the 2000 drop. The bull market didn't start until you had cheap financial conditions. Down here, we've got the S&P 500, and on the top, we simply have the interest rate. So we can see the correlation between the two. And as you can see, when did the biggest S&P 500 bull market of all time really start to kick into fruition? Well, it happened when the interest rates basically went down to 0.25%, and they resided at this level from 2008 all the way up to 2015. And you can see what happened when the interest rates came down to these cheap levels. The S&P 500 just absolutely went on a huge rampage, and we're currently in bubble territory. Now, the interest rates have been snatched away from us. We had this cheap financial conditions all the way back down here, but now they're pushing all the way up to 4.5%, and I believe that in the next FOMC meeting in the next month, we're probably going to push up to 5% in terms of the interest rates, which will of course further tighten financial conditions. And we've looked at what happens when there's tight financial conditions in the market. Even when they start to pivot, it takes a while to come back down into cheap financial conditions. So I do believe the S&P 500 in the higher time frames is really built for a breakdown. But what's more important, of course, is how the FOMC minutes in the lower time frame in the next 7 hours, how will this affect the market? Well, if we do come over to the E-mini futures for the S&P 500, I've talked about this chart quite recently in some of my most recent videos for the stock market, and I also mentioned this over on Bitcoin. But at this moment in time, we are just consolidating within a diamond bottom formation. That's just the name of the technical analysis pattern. You can just call this a diamond because personally myself, I don't think we're going to see a huge breakout from this, and if we do, I think it will be short-lived and all the way back down. So keep your eyes on what happens with the FOMC minutes. I will post their thoughts over on my Twitter, so if you do want to keep up to date with this, be sure to follow me at 618_cowboy, and I'll keep you informed when the data does come out. But yeah, that's basically it. If we do have a hawkish Fed, if the Fed comes out with new policy targets, if they say, hey, we think inflation is going to be a little bit higher than anticipated in 2023, and subsequently we're going to need to raise rates a little bit higher than we thought, then the S&P 500 and the E-mini future specifically on this chart is definitely likely to take a huge plunge to the downside. If they come out with some really dovish policy and they pretend everything's all peachy, then yeah, we could see a breakout, which is why I'm saying, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, I don't have insider information as to what the Fed is going to be saying. I'm just looking at things logically. and things should be hawkish, meaning that we probably should be breaking to the downside of this. And of course, if we look at Bitcoin right now, you can see Bitcoin is really trying to push up to the top of this bearish pennant right now. But what happens in Bitcoin in the lower time frames is really not as important as what happens in the S&P 500. Bitcoin could even have a fake move, just like it did over here, where it had a failed move equals a fast move in the opposite direction. And then if the E-mini futures for the S&P 500 decide to break down, it will also snap Bitcoin back down to the downside. So my number one advice is keep your eyes on what happens with the FOMC minutes. You can obviously do that by following me over on Twitter. Number two, the second most important chart you should be looking at is the E-mini futures and looking at this diamond consolidation pattern. And then finally, what happens in these two will bleed into what happens into Bitcoin. So of course, keep your eyes on this chart. Whether we break up or down is yet to be seen. I think we break down. We'll keep our eyes on the FOMC minutes, and I'll keep you up to date on Twitter. So all I've got for you for this episode. As always, my friends, if you enjoy the content, let me know down below by leaving a like and a comment. Share the video with your friends. It's been your boy Cowboy Trades. I'm out. Peace.